Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Muya 9.0. And of course, that was Suffocation with Liege of Inveracity off of their debut full length album, Effigy of the Forgotten from 1991. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our special guest, Frank Mullen. Hello, sir.
Hey man, what's up? How you doing?
Great. If you can see, we got a little crowd here. We're kind of like midway through Muya at this point with everybody doing their metal sets. And you are officially the first interview ever for Muya. So congrats.
Awesome. That's
Also,
excellent.
also, congrats on your number one hit song on AMP, which is Devoid of Truth from the 98 EP Despise the Sun. You literally have a number one that's over Drake and Nicki Minaj. How does that feel?
That's pretty amazing. And, like I did not think I'd be, in that same category or whatever, but that's pretty heavy. I mean, it is a brutal song, so I can see that definitely happening.
Yeah, if you had been around for this last week, it just kept popping up. Everyone was playing the fuck out of that song. And so that's the metal community here. We rally around something, and then all of a sudden it just takes over everything.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, but thank you very much for being here. So we're gonna not only be doing a little bit of an interview, but also you've provided a few songs that were influential to you to play. So we're just gonna get things rolling. Usually I'd be in the chat, shouting out all the people that are here, but we've got things to do, ladies and gentlemen. So we're gonna keep it rolling. So first off, for those of you in the audience that may not know, Frank Mullen was the vocalist of Suffocation for well over 30 years, minus a couple years of your life, correct?
Yeah. Basically, there was a period in there where, we pretty much were not touring. We kind of like split up, broke up for a little bit back in around like 98, and then got back together about 2003. And that's when we really started hitting it. So, and then about 2018 is pretty much when I went around and did my retirement run. It's not as easy, singing that brutal stuff for 30 something years. So.
Yeah. And to be honest, I love there's a couple things that you guys have done as a band that I think is super classy, and one of them was the quote unquote farewell tour for you, because usually when a member leaves a band, it always seems like there's some kind of drama or something, but it was really just like, thank you for your service, sir. And I love that. It's so fucking great.
Yeah. I mean, that, I definitely wanted to try to go out, and I wanted to try to also do European run as well, but then we all know what happened. The world, the world went to a shit show, and everything fell apart with this ridiculous COVID thing, and so then that put everything on hold. And then by the time things got ready to kind of like reopen, it was already a couple of years down the road, and it was just it just wasn't going to happen at that point. But it was great. I really wanted to get out and just thank all the fans and stuff for supporting me for all those years.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we're now in the modern day, let's take you all the way fucking back, just for a quick question. So, when you began actually your journey as a musician, did you begin it as a vocalist? Because I think I read somewhere that you at one point played the bass guitar as well.
Yeah. So I vocals were definitely nowhere near something I was going to do at all. I really wanted to be more, guitar player, bass player. So I had taken guitar lessons, when I was probably early 15 years old, about 15 years old. And so I was doing that for a while. And what ended up happening was there was like there was a band that we put together with a couple of guys from school and stuff like that. So they already had basically two guitar players. So I said, I'll play bass. And so I had done that at the very beginning. Did some battle of the bands type shit, stuff like that. And then one day we were like hanging out with, the same group of guys. And I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll try singing. So we came up with a band that was called Womb Rot. And the very first song was Cesarean Section. And I said, I mean, we never recorded anything. It never went anywhere. But I was like, yeah, all right. So I did it. And I screamed my face off. And then I couldn't talk for about 2 days. But I was like, this is amazing. And then from there, it just progressed. And then that's what I knew. I knew then that's what I wanted to do.
Nice. Well, while we're back in the day, let's talk about this first song that you chose. So I had you choose 5 songs that were influential to you, 5 metal songs, not necessarily just death metal, but metal in general. Yep. And the first one you chose was "Diary of a Madman" from the the title track from that '81 Ozzy Osbourne album. Anything to say about this song before we play it?
Yeah, so this goes back to my days in middle school, junior high school, basically more middle school at that point. So 81, I'm about 11 years old, 12, going into that range. And back in the day, the school basically it was a big thing between who's better, Van Halen or Ozzy Osbourne. And I mean, to me, it was just clear Ozzy Osbourne was better. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne, I liked Van Halen, but Ozzy just Ozzy,
Yeah.
He's evil. He's got everything going on, his songwriting. And at that point, it was, Randy Rhoads is there and everything. And I mean, the song is just absolutely amazing. And then that's kind of what started me on the trajectory, I guess, of like metal instead of like hard rock. Earlier before that, it was bands like, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, things like that. But this was the very first, Ozzy was the very first thing that started pushing me into the realm of like metal and what else is going to be out there metal wise.
Nice. And what better introduction to metal than the Ozman himself? So let's do this. This is off of Diary of a Madman, the actual title track. Here's Ozzy Osbourne. All right. Ozzy Osbourne, Diary of a Madman. The first choice from Mr. Frank Mullen from Suffocation. If you're just joining us, yes, this is an interview with the man himself from Suffocation, and he's also chosen some songs. We'll move on with the next question, Frank, if you're ready for that.
Yeah, sure.
So this is an important one. Let's talk a little bit about guttural vocals. The death growl style, whatever they want to call it. So yours at the time, especially, stood out for being one of like the lowest and almost like one of the most brutal sounding of the guttural vocals. So when Suffocation was first getting together, was it always the intention to do vocals that way, or how did you stumble across deciding to have that kind of delivery?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's definitely, a lot of different ways to approach it, but yeah, I wanted it to go along. I felt with the way the music was, I needed to be like low, guttural, brutal as fuck. So, I was hearing bands like, Chris Barnes with Cannibal Corpse and stuff, and like, Barney with Napalm Death, and like so those are like, I wanted to be down there. Like I didn't want highs. I didn't want to be like, mid-range or something. I always wanted to be, just low, deep, heavy. And then later on, also too, I wanted to, at some point, kind of like around the breeding and then into Pierce from Within, I also wanted it to be, I wanted to pronounce it, pronounce the words and try to push that across as well, but always keep it low and heavy and brutal. Like that was my intentions the whole time.
Yeah, that to me, like as a death metal fan, like I like all kinds of different death metal vocals, but the most impressive ones are the ones when you can understand what's being said.
yeah. Yeah, there are times, you'll throw on a new band or something, I'll get a demo tape or something, and I have no clue. I even try to follow lyrics. I don't even know where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's great, and of course, you know, you read in some places that you're considered one of the early popularizers. Like, you know, people heard you, and then they wanted to do the same kind of thing that you were doing. Do you feel any of that at all, or do you agree with that at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. I definitely hear some of the influences out there from different bands and stuff. Some of the newer stuff, and and then touring with a lot of bands. A lot of I would get feedback from other guys, and they would just be like, "Man, like your vocals were sick, and I wanted to try to do something very similar to what you were doing." And I mean, yeah, it's just amazing when you get that kind of feedback, and you feel like I always felt like. Like I'm nothing crazy as well. I'm just like anyone else. And when people are like, considering me one of the top vocalists, that's a true honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, somebody's got to be the one to do it first, or to do it a certain way first. And that's just how it plays out. But
Yep.
the next song we're going to get to is the complete opposite of guttural vocals. You chose an absolute classic, and I think everyone in the room will absolutely agree. From 1982, the title track from the Iron Maiden album, "The Number of the Beast." Anything to say about this one?
Yeah. So here, so again, here's the progression. Me as a little kid, growing long hair and stuff, trying to, find my metal roots. And I come along, this album, and I was just like, this just has to be sick. The Number of the Beast.
Yeah.
And Iron Maiden always just had, from a, like a visual standpoint, with Eddie and the album covers and everything, it drew me to that band. Their music, the writing of their music was just absolutely insane. Bruce Dickinson was a sick front man. And I mean, so I would go off to, like, the family would take these trips to up to the Poconos, and we'd go to this place called like Woodlock Pines. And it was, we go every summer, and it's a big, like the whole family goes and everything. And I would always be wearing my, my like baseball jersey, Maiden shirt. And then I had gotten at the local mall, you could get stuff written on the back. So I had Maiden rules, and I would wear that, around with all these other, kids at the camp or whatever. And there was only a few of us metalheads there, but I made it known that I'm a Maiden fan and I'm into heavy metal.
Yeah, and we can make it known that we're all Maiden fans here. So let's get into this one. Absolute classic, "The Number of the Beast."
Woe to you.
Oh, hell yeah, that's always a banger. "Number of the Beast" from Iron Maiden. And of course, in case you're just joining us, it's hard to keep up with the chat. Frank, I don't know if you're paying attention to the chat. If you click on where it says chat, there's a whole lot of action going on over there.
That thing where it says like ready to chat.
Yeah, if you click on that, you'll see, like during the songs, it's going crazy, and there's all the applause. I mean, it's hard to keep up with who's here, but thank you all for being here. And of course, thank you, Frank, for being here. So let's move on to my next question, which I want to bring us into a couple years into the band. So we're talking early 90s, but maybe 93-ish, because this is like when I was getting into death metal, 92, 93, and death metal was experiencing a very big boom. And there were a lot of bands that would later be called absolute classic bands, including Suffocation. But my question is, at the time when you had contemporaries, the bands you were friends with, other bands that maybe you didn't know, but and this is more like an internal question, either as a band or as a vocalist, did you feel like it was competition, or you had some sort of desire to surpass or do things that other bands weren't doing, or were you guys just kind of going with the flow?
No, I mean, no, I didn't really look at things as like a competition. Like there was so many. It was a great time to be part of that scene, because like just the music that was coming out was just insane, and it was, us so many different bands, doing like different things. So like for us, it was just hoping that we could put a neat like some sort of niche in there where we could fit in and kind of go along on the ride with all these sick bands that were out there. To me, it was never like, I got to be sicker than this guy, or we got to write, better music than this one. It was more like, I don't know, like I always felt like with death metal and the real heavy stuff, and I never felt like there was any competition with that kind of music. Like you never really looked at things where it's like, oh, I have to do something better than this guy, or this band we have to be better than this band,
Mm-hmm.
So I never looked at anything like that.
It's interesting that you say that, because now I don't know if you follow a lot of the younger and newer death metal bands, but if you follow them on their socials, they are constantly propping each other up and promoting each other. And it's weird how like the most brutal music seems to have the sweetest motherfuckers involved,
Yeah, right. You would think that, we're all just, we got bodies in the backyard, and we're just absolute maniacs, and eating people and stuff like that. But no, it was never. I never felt like that with any of the bands, touring wise, anything. It was never like we're sicker than you, or you guys, you guys have a lot of catching up. No, like it really is like a bunch of friends just getting together, and that's how it always felt like on the road.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. And moving on to the next song that you picked, Getting Heavier, and once again a song that unanimously here everybody loves. Another title track. I like that we're choosing some title tracks here from the 1985 Slayer album Hell Awaits. What do you got to say about this one?
Yeah, so right now I'm fucking full into just brutal. Like I just want to get heavier and heavier. So I'm 15 years old at this point, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, drinking, whatever the fuck's going on at that point. And now, like, I'm looking for anything that's, crazier than crazy. So I had heard about it from some older people, but I never really listened to any of it. And so I was rode my bike up to there used to be a store out here on Long Island. It was like two guys, and it's like a department store. So I rode my bike up there, and I got the Hell Awaits album, on cassette, and I rode home, and I put it in, and I was just absolutely blown away by the band. I mean, it just instantly floored me. Tom Araya with his just super fast vocals. It was something I had never heard before, and I was like, wow, this is sick as fuck. And then shortly after that, I also went out and got the Exodus album, Bonded by Blood, and nice. I knew it had to be sick, because when you have two babies on the cover and one's evil and demonic looking, and another, I said, just by the album cover, I was like, there's no way this thing could absolutely suck. So I bought it just on the album cover. And a lot of times you would do that then, because you didn't know what the band sounded like. They didn't play this shit on radio. So the only way was for you to really go around and research it and try to be like, okay, did you hear this? Did you hear that? So a lot of times I bought stuff just on what it looked like, and I was like, this has to be sick.
Absolutely. And that Slayer album looks sick as well. So how about right now, everybody do me a favor, everybody out there, close your eyes and let's imagine ourselves as 15-year-old Frank Mullen putting the needle down on Hell Awaits, and this is the first thing he hears. All right, everybody, get out of the pit and let's do some stretches. We're all a bit older now, so we got to take care of ourselves. But that was a little crazy. But yeah, some Slayer there, obviously. Great for Muya. And if you're just joining us, we're interviewing Frank Mullen, who was the longtime and original vocalist of Suffocation. And Frank, for the next, this is actually, there's good interview questions, and then there's questions where it's actually coming from me, like I'm curious about this.
Okay.
Because, recently, this week, we had the song Devoid of Truth from the Despise the Sun EP go to #1 on AMP. That was in '98. And then after that, you guys split for a few years. So it's kind of a two-part question. Number one, what was the cause of the split at the time? And a second part of the question, what did you do during those few years?
All right. So the split was basically kind of like, so at that time, I was married at that time. My wife at that time was kind of like, how long are you going to continue to do this?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And, and also too, I felt kind of like around that time, like the scene was kind of like changing. Like it was a little weird in the late 90s. And with that pressure from there and what was kind of happening, it just became a point where I said, I won't be able to do this. And we kind of just, we decided to let's just break away from this for now. And then basically, so now you fast forward a couple of more years, and then now I'm going through a divorce at that point. And right. So it's like, when we stop doing this, I stopped doing it, and now I'm going through a divorce.
What better way to deal with a breakup or divorce than fuck it, I'm getting the band back together.
Exactly. So it was exactly like the Blues Brothers, when Jake and Elliot, let's get the band back together, So I made some phone call. At that time, I was actually living in Las Vegas, and I had called the guys, back here in New York, and I started talking to a couple of them and said, hey, would you be interested in trying to do this thing again? And if so, I'll pack my shit up and I'll head back up to New York. And they were interested, and that's where it went. And so once I got back up here, then it was a matter of getting together and starting to play again and get ourselves back in shape as far as like getting ready to go out and play shows and all that, and then starting to record albums, and then hitting the road and doing some full-on tour for a bunch of years there from that point.
And to be from a fan perspective, it really felt like you guys didn't even miss a day. Like from that EP to the next album, you guys were just full on, hit the ground running, and I've always thought that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it felt great. I mean, the album's coming back from the break, and when we started going back out, Souls to Deny, and all that and everything. I mean, it was just a lot of the songs are just amazing songs, and I love playing them, and so I loved the fact of actually when I got to do it the second time around, it was absolutely amazing, because I didn't really get to do that kind of full-time touring the first time. So to really be able to dive into it and see all the fans around the world, and the shows were just absolutely amazing, and the fans were just amazing. So just to be able to really be able to do that the second time around was just awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's move back to the songs real quick. We got a few more left, and we're getting short on time, but I'm going to try to. We got Trash the Places show up after this, so I'm going to try not to go too far into his. But we're going to get through these songs, and the next pick was still from back in that era, from 1984. You chose a song from Celtic Frost from their Morbid Tales album. You chose Into the Crypts of Rays. I want to say something about this one.
Yeah. So again, this is the time to, I'm full on teenager role at this point, loving the scene back then. The music's just amazing. So now it's something a little different. It's kind of like, again, looking out and seeing what else is out there. And so now I start looking into, European bands and stuff like that. And I come across, Celtic Frost, and they had like some amazing artwork, and I had the the back patch on my denim jacket, Dethroned Emperor, and would walk around high school with that. And I'm sure I probably pissed off a bunch of teachers and stuff like that, but I didn't give a fuck. And so this is an amazing song. They're just, it was a different sound from what was coming out here in the States. So like that drew me into bands like that, where then now you start getting into Destruction and Sodom and Creator and all that. So but I absolutely love the song. I love the band, and yeah.
Same here. Let's do this. Celtic Frost, Into the Crypts of Rays. Hell yeah. Tom G. Warrior, Celtic Frost, Into Crypts of Rays. Yeah, that's a fucking killer song. And yes, I see some people trickling in, and yes, I'm here interviewing Frank Mullen from Suffocation, but also playing a handful of tracks that were influential to him back in the day. But let's move from back in the day to now. Another kind of two-part question, and the part one, because you're no longer in the band and doing anything, I guess, publicly, you can divulge as much as you want to. But the two-part question is, because it's been a few years now since your last show with Suffocation. So the first part of the question is, what are you up to these days? And the second part of the question is, do you miss it? Do you miss being in the band?
Yeah, so basically at this point, I'm pretty much just doing home life for the most part. I do at some point anticipate maybe putting a little something together with different people, not necessarily maybe like touring, but just recording and putting some tracks together and putting some down. It'll be different than Suffocation, but it'll be my vocals and stuff. But maybe going around to something just heavy, brutal, maybe not as technical, but that's what I plan on doing at some point. And do I miss it? Yeah, fuck yeah, of course I miss it. If I could. Maybe if they come up with like where you can just teleport into some shit and you can play the show and then teleport and be right back home, like that would make it amazing. But yeah, I mean I miss it. I miss playing the shows. The road stuff can get a little rough. Sometimes you're out 6 weeks or whatever, and it can get a little just. Like kind of like you're like you're just stuck in like on this bus or whatever, and like I need to like move around, and so it freaks you out after a while. But playing the shows, yeah, fuck yeah, I miss it. I mean, that's the best feeling in the world, being on stage and just having the fans and the kids going fucking nuts and killing each other. There's nothing else like it. So,
yeah. Well, it's good to know that you'll get back to doing some kind of music, because I figured those of us that do music will probably never stop, and there's some kind of outlet that's going to happen, and so it's good to hear that.
Yeah, that's what I plan on. So
cool. So moving back to your last track that you picked, moving forward to 1989 and getting into some death metal at this point. And it's some Morbid Angel, which back in the early 90s, Morbid Angel was my favorite death metal band. And the song you picked was from their Altars of Madness record, and the song is Suffocation. So the question comes up, was the band named after this song somehow?
You hit it on the head, my friend. So,
nice.
Yeah, so now, so this is 1989. We were basically... like, this is the point where, we're trying to come up with a name for the band, we're getting things together. And, I hear the album, Altars of Man, it's a sick album. And sure enough, there's a song, Suffocation. And I was like, that's it. I said, that's the name. Like, it's straight, it's to the point. Yeah. And what's better than a little suffocation?
Isn't it cool that you existed back in the time when that name wasn't already taken by 50 bands?
Yeah, I see, and that was the hard thing. You know, I know it was another Shun band, but yes, nobody had taken Suffocation at that point. I was like, wow. I said, and that's it. And once I heard the song, once I put it all together, I was like, yeah, that's perfect.
Sweet. Well, let's do that. Let's listen to the song that inspired the band name from 1989. Here's Morbid Angel with Suffocation. Fuck yeah, Suffocation from Morbid Angel, and that brings us to our last question for you, Frank. And you've been amazing. And I'll probably say thank you 500 times to you for this, but thank you.
Thank you.
But it brings us to my last question, which is I know that if I didn't ask this, then people would be like, "What the fuck? Why didn't you?" So on November 3rd, the new Suffocation album comes out, which is called Hymns from the Apocrypha, featuring Ricky Myers on vocals for the first time. Now, when I said earlier that you guys have done some things that I think are pretty classy, and I love it, because Ricky Myers, not only he subbed for you, several times as the vocalist, but also on the last album that you were on, he did some backing vocal work. So I love the fact that this guy is kind of he was sort of transitioned into the band and welcomed in, and it was like a weird passing of the torch that I just think was so beautifully done. But my question for you is, have you heard the new album, and what do you think?
I've heard a couple of the tracks, yes, and yeah, I mean it's sick. I mean it's Suffocation, definitely. Terrence Hobbs is still there, so with Terrence Hobbs still writing, a majority of the music there, it's always going to have a Suffocation sound to it.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think it came out great. I actually put some vocals down for one of the Breeding the Track songs. So Breeding the Spawn songs. So you will hear me on the new album.
Oh, sweet.
Well.
Good to know.
And but yeah, I mean Ricky did a sick job. He laid down some sick vocals, and it sounds good. So I mean, they're gonna do very well with it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm already excited about it. But yeah, so before to take us out of the show, we have Trash the Place coming up next. But to take us out of the show, I've chosen a song from the last album that you were on, the 2017 album of The Dark Light. And but before we go, of course, once again, thank you very much for doing this, Frank. You've been amazing.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, and stay brutal. And yeah, man, it's been awesome. And yeah, it was great doing this. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't let it in without thanking Super Kitty, because she was the connection here, and this would not have happened without Super Kitty. So everybody, if you enjoyed this interview, you can thank me and Frank all you want, but I think a lot of thanks goes to Super Kitty, because she was the catalyst of this whole thing. So yeah, Frank, you've been amazing, and the crowd, you guys have been amazing. Thank you very much for doing this. And let's see our way out with a song. I don't know what my favorite song from this album is, but this is a killer one. So we're gonna see our way out with I almost pronounced that correctly. It was an almost flawless show, and then I mispronounced the word last. Your Last Breaths from the 2017 album of The Dark Light from Suffocation. Thanks, Frank, and we will see you all soon.
Yep, stay brutal.